Alright, welcome back. This is lesson 52, day 2. We're going to talk some more about piecewise functions. So I know yesterday we just saw graphs of piecewise functions, but really what a piecewise function is 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of different graphs depending on a given domain, right? So it might be a line at the beginning, and then it's a parabola, and then it's another line. So what you're looking at right now is kind of how piecewise functions are written. So this is the function, and then there's a few different, and it might be 2, it might be 3 different functions inside of it because it's pieces of functions. And the pieces and the size of the piece is going to depend on the domain. So I have to not only give you a function, but I also have to give you the domain of that function. So where are we talking about that function being? So I'm going to call these two just A and B for right now so we could talk about them. Because now when I come down here, my first step is to figure out which function I'm going to use, which piece. So I got to figure out which piece of the function. Which piece of the function. I got to figure out which piece, and that's going to bug me, so I'm going to erase the which, and I write which piece of the function. So I have to decide, when I'm using this, I have to look at and decide, am I going to be using piece A or piece B? So this is, remember, our x. So -1 is going to be an x. And so I'm going to look up here, and I have to decide, based on the domain, which piece am I talking about. So if x is -1, this says x has to be greater than -1. This one says x has to be less than or equal to -1. So here we're talking about piece A. You see how I did that, right? So I'm looking over here and deciding which piece I'm going to be using. Once I do that, then I'm going to do my second step, which is then use the function. Oof, I'm not having a good writing day today. Here we go. Use the function to find the value. So now, once I decide it's A, I'm going to be using one of these functions to represent that information. So what they're saying is, now that I know that x is equal to -1, I'm going to use this function. So all this function says, and I'm using the function notation f of -1, it says it equals x. Well, guess what x is? -1. And I'm done. I didn't really have to do much of anything there, right? I just had to write down and substitute in x, the x that I was given. There you go. So let's try another one. F of 4. So again, I'm going to use the domains and figure out which function I'm using. This says less than or equal to -1. This says greater than -1. I know 4 is greater than -1, so I'm talking about piece B. And now I'm going to use the function. So they have, and I'll rewrite it before I even substitute in, right? That's what they're telling me. So now I'm going to substitute in 4, because that's what they're telling me to substitute in, right? 4 for x. And now it's -4 plus 4, which would equal 0. So f of 4 equals 0. I'm going to go back over here and just rewrite what I should have rewritten over here. F of -1 equals x, because remember, that was the function that we had to use. Okay, so pick my function. Once I decide which one it is, I use the function and I substitute in. So let's go back. Third one, f of -3. So -3, is that greater than -1? No, that's actually less than -1. So we're going to still use function A, or that piece, right, of the function. And right now it just says x. So I'm going to now substitute in my -3 in for x, and I'm done. I don't have to do anything else for that one. A little tricky, right? So we're going to do another example together, and we're going to get more and more comfortable as we go. No worries at all. Make sure you have all this copied, and then we're moving on. Okay, so moving on to our next question. You might notice this one has 3 pieces to it. So I'm going to label them 3A, B, and C. So again, our first decision is based on the number that we have, which piece are we talking about? Once I'm done with that, then I decide which function to plug my number into. So let's look at -1. -1 is less than -2. Is it in between -2 and 6, or is it greater than 6? So if you need to, you can always sketch out a number line or look at a number line. -1 is greater than -2, so it's going to be piece B. And again, you don't have to write the numbers in. I'm just writing them just because it helps me organize my information. And we're talking about f of -1, and if we're going to use piece B, then this is the function I'm going to write down, 1/2 x minus 6. And then once I do that, I'm going to now substitute in my -1 in for x. Plug this whole thing into my calculator. I get f of -1 to equal, oh, I get a fraction. Alright, that's okay. No big deal. -13/2. Okay. So again, a couple little steps in here. Again, decide which function we're talking about, copy it down, plug in the value. So f of 6, is 6 greater than 6? No, it's actually equal to 6. So that would be right here. That would also be choice B. So again, I'm going to copy that function down. F of 6, we're talking about function B, so that's 1/2 x minus 6. So again, except I'm now going to substitute in 6 where I had x. And f of 6 is going to equal, put this whole thing in my calculator, -3. Okay, moving on to the next number. F of -3. Remember, this is representing an x value. Where is -3? -3 is less than -2, so it's going to be choice A. And then all I have to write, I'm looking at the function right now, all I have to write is 5. And guess what? That's it. I'm done. So somewhere on this graph, after it gets less than -2, the answer is always going to be 5. So that's going to look like a straight line on my graph. Alright, and the last one over here, f of 12. Again, looking for an x value of 12. Which one is it? It's not less than -2. It's not in between 2 and 6. It is greater than 6. So I'm going to copy down the last function, which is, which is function C. So I'm going to copy f of 12, and I'm going to copy -2x plus 10. And again, wherever I see the x, I'm going to substitute in a 12. And then plug that in, and then my final answer will be whatever that answer is, all plugged in. And I'm not even going to tell you. I'm going to make you take your calculator out and do it yourself. So do it yourself and get that final answer, and I will see you and talk to you soon.